Welcome everyone to my channel. We're doing fairy tales from around the globe because we have finished the Icelandic ones. The first ones we're going to do are actually Japanese because I haven't done any Japanese yet. This one's called The Adventures of Little Peachling. Many 100 years ago, there lived an honest old woodcutter and his wife. One fine morning, the old man went off to the hills with his billhook to gather a faggot of sticks, while his wife went down to the river to wash the dirty clothes. When she came to the river, she saw a peach floating down the stream. So she picked it up and carried it home with her, thinking to give it to her husband to eat when he should come in. The old man soon came down from the hills, and the good wife set the peach before him, when, just as she was inviting him to eat it, the fruit split into two, and a little puling baby was born into the world. So the old couple took the babe and brought it up as their own, and because it had been born in a peach, they called it Momotaro, or Little Peachling, for Momo means a peach, and Taro is the termination of the names of the eldest sons. By degrees, Little Peachling grew up to be a strong and brave, and at last one day he did say to his foster parents, "I'm going to the ogre's island. There I'm going to carry off their riches that they have stored up. Pray then make me some millet dumplings for my journey." So the old folk ground the millet and made the dumplings for him. Little Peachling, after taking the affection, left cheerfully and set out on his travels. As he was journeying on, he fell in with an ape, when gibbered at him and said, "Kia, kia, kia, where are you off to, Little Peachling?" "I'm going to the Ogress Island to carry off their treasure," answered Little Peachling. "What? And what are you carrying there on your girdle?" "I'm carrying the very best millet dumplings in all Japan. If you give me one, I'll go with you," said the ape. So Little Peachling gave one of the dumplings to the ape, who received it and followed him. When he had gone just a little further, he heard a pheasant calling, "Kien, kien, kien, where are you off to, Master Peachling?" Little Peachling answered as before, and the pheasant, having begged and obtained a millet dumpling, entered his service and followed him. A little while after this they met a dog, who cried, "Bow, wow, wow, whither away, Master Peachling?" "I'm going off to the Ogress Island to carry off their treasure. If you will give me one of those nice millet dumplings of yours, I will go with you," said the dog. "With all my heart," said Little Peachling. So he went on his way with the ape, the pheasant, and the dog following after him. When they got to the Ogress Island, the pheasant flew over the castle gate. The ape clambered over the castle wall, while Little Peachling, leading the dog, had to force the gate open. But they did, and got into the castle. Then they did battle with the ogres, and put them to flight, and took their king prisoner. So all the ogres did homage to Little Peachling, and brought out the treasures which they had laid up. There were caps and coats, that made the wearers invisible, jewels which governed the ebb and flow of a tide, coral, musk, emeralds, amber, and tortoise shell, besides gold and silver. All these were laid before little Peachling by the conquered ogres. So little Peachling went home laden with riches, and maintained his foster parents in peace and plenty for the remainder of their lives. The end. The next one, again, is a Japanese one, and it's called The Fox's Wedding. Once upon a time, there was a young white fox, whose name was Fukiemon. When he had reached the fitting age, he shaved off his forelock and began to think of taking himself a beautiful bride. The old fox, his father, resolved to give up his inheritance to his son, and retired into private life. So the young fox, in gratitude for this, laboured hard and earnestly to increase his patrimony. Now it happened that, in a famous old family of foxes, there was a beautiful young lady fox with such lovely fur that the fame of her jewel-like charms were spread far and wide. The young white fox, who had heard of this, was best on making for his wife, for he wanted her, and a meeting was arranged between them. There was not a fault to be found on either side. So the preliminaries were set, and the wedding presents sent from the bridegroom to the bride's house, with congratulatory speeches from the messenger, which were duly acknowledged by the person deputed to receive the gifts. The bearers, of course, received their customary fee in copper cash. When the ceremonies had been concluded, an auspicious day was chosen for the bride to go to her husband's house, and she was carried off in a solemn procession during a shower of rain, the sun shining all the while. In Japan, a shower during sunshine is called the fox's bride going to her husband's house. After the ceremonies of drinking wine had been gone through, the bride changed her dress and the wedding was concluded, without let or any hindrance amid singing and dancing and merrymaking. The bride and bridegroom lived lovingly together, and a litter of little foxes was born to them, to the great joy of the old grandsire, who treated the little cubs as tenderly as if they had been butterflies or flowers. "The very image of their dear old grandfather," said he, so proud as possible. "As for medicine, bless them, they're so healthy that they'll never need a copper coin's worth." As soon as they were old enough, they were carried off to the temple of Inal-san, the patron saint of foxes, and the old grandparents prayed that they might be delivered from dogs and all other ills to which fox flesh is heir. In this way the white fox by degrees waxed old and prosperous, and his children year by year became more and more numerous around him, so that, happy in his family and his business, every recurring spring brought him fresh cause for joy. The end. Very peculiar one, that, don't you think? But they are Japanese, so therefore they're bound to be a little bit different, I suppose. The next one's called the Tongue Cut Sparrow. Once upon a time there lived an old man and old woman. The old man, who had a kind heart, kept a young sparrow, which he tenderly nurtured. But the dame was a cross-grained old thing, and one day, when the sparrow had pecked at some paste with which she was going to starch her linen, she flew into a great rage and cut the sparrow's tongue and let it loose. When the old man came home from the hills and found that the bird had flown, he asked what had become of it. So the old woman answered that she had cut its tongue and let it go, because it had stolen her starching paste. Now the old man, hearing this cruel tale, was sorely grieved, and thought to himself, Alas, where can my bird be gone, poor thing, poor little Tongue Cut Sparrow? Where is your home now? And he wandered far and wide, seeking for his pet, and crying, Mr. Sparrow, Mr. Sparrow, where are you living? One day, at the foot of a certain mountain, the old man fell in with a lost bird, and when they had congratulated one another on their mutual safety, the sparrow led the old man to his home, and having introduced him to his wife and chicks, set before him all sorts of dainties, and entertained him. Very hospitable they were. Please partake of our humble fare, said the sparrow. Poor as it is, you are very welcome. Its wife and children and grandchildren all served at the table, and when the guest could drink absolutely not another drop, the sparrow threw down the drinking cup and danced a jig in his honour. What a polite sparrow, answered the old man, who remained for a long time on the sparrow's guest, and was daily feasted like royalty. At last the old man did say to the lovely sparrow family that he must take his leave, and he must absolutely return home. And the bird, bringing out 2 wicker baskets, begged him to carry them with him as a parting present. One of the baskets was heavy, and the other was light. So the old man, saying that he was feeble and stricken in years, he would only accept the light one, shouldered it and trudged off home, leaving the sparrow family disconsolate at parting from him. When the old man got home, the dame grew very angry, and began to scold him, saying, Well, and pray where have you been this many a day? A pretty thing indeed to be dawdling about at your time of life. Oh, replied he, I have been on a visit to the sparrows, and when I came away they gave me this wicker basket as a parting gift. Then they opened the basket to see what was inside, and lo and behold, it was full of gold and silver and jewels and rolls of silk. When the old woman, who was so greedy as she was cross, saw all the riches displayed before her, she changed her scolding strain, and could not contain herself for joy. I'll go and call upon the sparrows too, she said, and get a pretty present. So she asked the old man the way to the sparrows, and she set forth on the journey to their house. Following his directions, she at last met the tongue-cut sparrow, and exclaimed, well met, Mr. Sparrow. I've been looking forward to the pleasure of seeing you. So she tried to flatter and cajole the sparrow by soft speeches. The bird could not but invite the dame in his home, but it took no pains to feast her, and she said nothing about a parting gift. She, however, was not to be put off, so she asked for something to carry away with her in remembrance of her visit. The sparrow accordingly produced 2 baskets as before, and the greedy old woman, choosing the heavier of the 2, carried it off with her. But when she finally made it home and got to open up the basket, what did she find inside? Well, inside was all sorts of hobgoblins and devils, and they all sprang out of it and began to torment her. But the old man adopted a son, and his family grew rich and prosperous. What a happy old man! The woman remained tortured by the beings. The end. I guess that's a tale about being kind and not too greedy, I suppose. I can't think what else it would be anyway. Yes, whether this is the same as what it would be in English terms, but it is possible that sparrows are a being rather than an actual small bird that you're thinking of, but something bigger. Anyway, those are some Japanese fairy tales. I hope you enjoyed them. I sure did. First time I've read them. Please hit that like. It really does help. Thank you for listening and many blessings.